The great chamber fell silent when High Arbiter Hal raised his four clawed hands. 47 species had sent their representatives to this emergency session on Prime, and all of them waited to hear why they had been summoned across thousands of light years on such short notice. Ambassador Daniel Carter sat in the human delegation seat and felt the weight of alien eyes upon him. He had served as humanity's voice in the Galactic Council for 12 years, and he had never seen the chamber this tense. Something was very wrong. Fellow beings of the galactic community, Hal began, his voice clicking through the universal translator. We have gathered today to address a threat unlike any we have faced in 10,000 years, a threat that grows stronger with each passing cycle, a threat that we can no longer ignore. Daniel leaned forward. He had heard nothing about any new threat, no warnings from Earth, no intelligence reports from human space. The species known as humanity, Hal continued, has been classified as a Category Omega threat to galactic stability. The chamber erupted. Daniel shot to his feet, his heart pounding in his chest. Commander Lisa Monroe, his military, grabbed his arm to steady him. "This is outrageous," Daniel shouted above the noise. "Humanity has broken no laws. We have honored every treaty. We have fought alongside many of you against common enemies. On what grounds do you make this accusation?" Hal waited for the noise to fade. His compound eyes focused on Daniel with an expression that the ambassador had learned to recognize over the years. It was not anger, it was fear. "Ambassador Carter, please understand. This classification is not a punishment for crimes committed. It is a warning about what humanity represents." The High Arbiter gestured to the central display, and a holographic map of the galaxy appeared. 300 years ago, your species achieved faster-than-light travel. In that time, you have spread to 200 worlds. "We are explorers," Daniel said. "We seek new homes, new knowledge. This is not a crime." "No," agreed Counselor, a tall reptilian diplomat who Daniel had always considered friendly to humanity. "It is not a crime, but it is unprecedented. My species achieved star travel 4,000 years ago. We have colonized 18 worlds. They have traveled the stars for 6,000 years. They hold 31 worlds. Yet humanity in just 3 centuries has claimed 200. Lisa Monroe stepped forward. "We adapt quickly. We work hard. Is success now considered a threat?" "Your adaptation," said a new voice, "is exactly what frightens us." The speaker was Counselor Ra, an aquatic being who floated in a specially designed water tank. Her species, were known throughout the galaxy for their scientific achievements. "We have studied humanity for 200 years, Ra said. "At first, we thought you were simply determined. Then we thought you were lucky, but the truth is far more disturbing." The holographic display changed to show a world covered in storms and radiation. Daniel recognized it as 442b, one of humanity's most successful colonies. "This world," Ra explained, "has radiation levels that would kill most species within hours. The atmosphere contains chemicals that destroy the lungs of carbon-based life forms. The gravity is 30% higher than your. By every measure, this planet should be uninhabitable for humans." "We built domes," Lisa said. "We developed new medicines. We trained our bodies." "You did more than that." Ra's voice carried something close to awe. "Within 3 generations, humans born on this world showed natural resistance to the radiation. Their lungs processed the toxic chemicals without artificial help. Their bones and muscles adapted to the gravity as if they had always lived there. You did not just survive, you evolved." Daniel felt cold. He had always known that humanity was adaptable, but he had never thought about what that might look like from the outside. "Counselor," Hal said, "please share your people's experience." The reptilian diplomat nodded slowly. 40 years ago, a human trading vessel crashed on one of our border worlds. The crew of 16 survived the impact. They were stranded for 8 months before rescue arrived. When we found them, they had not only survived in a jungle that kills our own soldiers within weeks, they had built a small community. They had tamed creatures that we use in our nightmares to frighten children. And most remarkably, they had learned enough of our language from an old damaged computer to greet the rescue team in perfect. 8 months, said another counselor, a being of pure energy who flickered with agitation. My people take decades to learn a new language. Your kind did it in months from broken recordings while fighting for survival on a death world. Daniel looked around the chamber. For the first time, he saw the expressions on the alien faces for what they truly were. These beings were not angry at humanity. They were terrified. High Arbiter, Daniel said carefully, I understand that our differences may seem strange to you, but surely you must see that we mean no harm. Humanity has always sought friendship with other species. We have shared our technology, our medicine, our art. We have fought and died beside your soldiers in wars that were not our own. Yes, Hal agreed, you have, and that makes you even more dangerous. I do not understand. The ancient stepped down from his platform and approached Daniel directly. Despite the translator, Daniel could hear the clicking fear in his voice. Ambassador Carter, every species in this chamber has limitations. We are bound by biology, by psychology, by the slow march of evolution. But humanity breaks every rule we thought was universal. You adapt to any environment. You bond with any species. You learn any skill. You survive any disaster. And you do all of this while making friends, building alliances, and spreading your influence across the stars. Hal stopped directly in front of Daniel and looked up at him with those ancient compound eyes. You do not understand what you are. We have seen species rise and fall across millions of years. We have watched empires crumble and civilizations burn. But we have never, in all our history, encountered anything like humanity. Then help me understand, Daniel said. What are we? Hal's voice dropped to barely a whisper. You are not afraid of what you have done, Ambassador, and that is precisely why we are. We are not afraid of your weapons or your armies. We are afraid of what you are. We are afraid of what you will become. The chamber fell silent once more. Daniel Carter stood alone under the weight of 47 species who looked at humanity and saw not friends, not enemies, but something far more terrifying. They saw potential without limits. And they had no idea what to do about it. The holographic projectors hummed to life as the council prepared to show their evidence. Daniel Carter remained standing, his hands gripped tight behind his back. Lisa Monroe stood beside him, her military training keeping her face calm even as her eyes burned with anger. We will now present testimonies, High Arbiter Hal announced. These are recorded accounts from species who have encountered humanity directly. They will help explain why this session was called. The first image showed a world of endless deserts and burning skis. Daniel recognized it as Nova Sierra, a human colony that had been established 60 years ago. A commander appeared in the hologram. His exoskeleton was from countless battles, and his voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. I led a scientific expedition to this world before the humans arrived, they said. The surface temperature reaches levels that melt our equipment. The sandstorms strip flesh from bone. We lost 12 soldiers in 3 days and declared the planet uninhabitable. We marked it as a death world and moved on. The image shifted to show a thriving human city with green parks and laughing children. 30 years later, I returned to find this. The humans did not just survive. They built paradise from hell. When I asked them how, they simply said they got used to it, as if adapting to conditions that killed my finest warriors was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. The hologram faded, and a new one took its place. This time, Daniel saw a prison facility that he did not recognize. This testimony comes from the military, Hal explained. A reptilian officer appeared, his scales a deep blue that marked him as high-ranking among his people. During the border conflict of 40 years past, we captured a human patrol, 7 soldiers and 1 medic. We placed them in our most secure facility and prepared to use them as bargaining chips in negotiations. The officer's voice grew troubled. Within 3 weeks, the human medic had learned enough of our language to request medical supplies for a sick guard. We were shocked but thought it was simply memorization. Within 6 weeks, all 8 humans could speak basic. Within 3 months, they were having complex conversations with their guards. Daniel felt Lisa shift beside him. He knew what was coming. The humans did not try to escape through force, the officer continued. They escaped through friendship. They learned our culture, our values, our weaknesses. They convinced 4 of my guards that the war was wrong. They walked out of our prison with an escort of our own soldiers who had chosen to defect. We did not lose prisoners that day. We lost an entire belief system. The council chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Daniel could see representatives whispering to each other, their fear growing with each testimony. Counselor Ra floated forward in her tank. I will now present the scientific evidence that my people have gathered. Data streams filled the air around her, showing biological comparisons between humans and other species. Human beings should not exist, Ra stated. Your species breaks fundamental rules of biology. You can survive temperature ranges that span 60 degrees. You can breathe air with oxygen levels that would poison most species. You can eat foods that are toxic to 90% of known life forms and somehow extract nutrients from them. She highlighted a section of the data. But most remarkable is this. Human beings form emotional bonds faster and stronger than any species we have ever studied. You can look at a creature that wants to kill you and see a friend. You can take monsters and turn them into pets. You can meet an alien species for the first time and within days be willing to die for them. That is called compassion, Daniel said quietly. It is not a weapon. To you, perhaps not, Ra replied. But to us, it is the most dangerous ability in the galaxy, because you do not just adapt to environments, Ambassador. You adapt to people. You make us love you, and once we love you, we would do anything for you. A new figure appeared in the chamber. This one was an avian being with feathers the color of sunset and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. Daniel knew him as historian, a scholar who had dedicated his life to studying the rise and fall of civilizations. I have spent the last 50 years studying your species, said. I read your histories, I watched your entertainment, I studied your wars and your peace. He spread his wings slightly, a gesture that Daniel knew meant deep concern. What I found terrified me more than any weapon or army ever could. Your species has faced 5 mass extinction events on your. 5 times the universe tried to destroy you, and 5 times you survived. You survived ice ages that covered your world in frozen death. You survived asteroids that blocked out your sun. You survived plagues that killed millions. And most remarkably, you survived yourselves. The hologram showed images from human history. Wars, famines, disasters, and moments of terrible darkness. You nearly destroyed your own civilization multiple times. You poisoned your own air, your own water, your own soil. You built weapons that could turn your entire planet to ash. By every measure, humanity should have gone extinct a dozen times over. His voice dropped low. But you did not die, you adapted, you changed. You took every disaster and somehow came out stronger. This is what terrifies the Council, Ambassador, not that you might attack us, but that nothing we do can stop you. You are not just survivors. You are survival itself given form. Daniel Carter looked around the chamber at the faces of 47 species. He saw fear, yes, but he also saw something else underneath. He saw awe, he saw wonder, and in some eyes like those of Counselor he saw hope. High Arbiter, Daniel said, everything you have shown proves only that humanity is strong. It does not prove that we are dangerous to you. The evidence is not yet complete, Hal replied. "We have been watching humanity for 200 years, Ambassador, and what we discovered in that time is what forced us to call this emergency session." Lisa Monroe stepped forward. "Then show us. Stop dancing around the truth and tell us what you really fear." Hal regarded her with something that might have been respect. "Very well, Commander. We will show you everything." The lights dimmed, and the holographic display changed to show ancient ruins on a distant world. Structures of impossible beauty and technology beyond anything Daniel had ever seen. "These are precursor ruins," Hal explained, "built by a species that created our galactic civilization over 1 million years ago, a species that vanished without explanation." He turned to face Daniel directly. "A species that, according to every piece of evidence we have gathered, was exactly like humanity." The chamber erupted in chaos, but Daniel Carter heard none of it. He stared at the ancient ruins on the screen and felt the foundations of everything he believed begin to crack beneath his feet. Humanity was not just adapting to the galaxy. They had been here before. Deep beneath the capital city of Earth, President Cole watched the council session through an encrypted feed. His advisors surrounded him in the secure bunker, their faces pale with shock. "Sir," General Amy said, "if the council is right about the precursor connection, everything changes." "I know," Cole replied quietly. "Get me Dr. Park now." On Prime, the council chamber had descended into arguments. Species that had been allies for centuries now shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate action against humanity. Others called for calm and further study. Through it all, Daniel Carter stood silent, trying to process what he had just learned. High Arbiter Hal raised his hands for silence. When the noise finally faded, he spoke. "There is one among us who remembers the precursors. Elder, please share your testimony." A section of the chamber floor opened, and a platform rose carrying the oldest being Daniel had ever seen. Elder was a creature of crystal and light, their form shifting slowly like a living gem. They were over 2 million years old, one of the last surviving witnesses to the age of the precursors. "I was young when they vanished," said, their voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Barely 100,000 cycles old, but I remember them. I remember what they were." The elder's form flickered with ancient memories. The precursors did not conquer the galaxy. They connected it. They found young species struggling on there and lifted them to the stars. They built the communication networks we still use today. They created the jump gates that allow travel between distant worlds. Everything our civilization is built upon came from them. "How did they do it?" Daniel asked. "How did one species accomplish so much?" "Because they were like you," replied. "They adapted to every environment. They learned every language. They bonded with every species they met. They saw the galaxy not as a collection of resources to exploit, but as a garden to tend. They were caretakers, Ambassador, and they made us their children." "Then why did they disappear?" Lisa Monroe demanded. Slight dimmed with sorrow. "I do not know. One day they were everywhere. The next day they were gone. No war, no plague, no disaster. They simply vanished. For 1,000,000 years we have wondered why. For 1,000,000 years we have feared they would return." "And now you think we are them," Daniel said. "Not think, Ambassador, no." The hologram changed to show Captain Torres and her crew standing before ancient precursor ruins. Daniel recognized the footage from 15 years ago, a classified expedition to the edge of known space. Captain Torres discovered these ruins on a world that had been forbidden to all species for 1,000,000 years, Hal explained. When her team entered the structure, something remarkable happened. The footage showed Torres approaching a massive door covered in alien symbols. As she raised her hand to touch it, the door glowed with soft blue light and slid open. Behind her, alien scientists stood frozen in shock. "The precursor technology responded to human DNA," Hal continued. It recognized Captain Torres as if she belonged there, as if she was coming home. On Earth, President Cole watched the same footage while Dr. Park entered the bunker. Park was a geneticist who had been working on classified research for the past decade. His face was gray with exhaustion and something that looked like fear. "You already know, don't you?" Cole asked. Park nodded slowly. "We discovered it 3 years ago, sir. We did not know how to tell anyone." "Tell them what?" Park brought up his research on the main screen. It showed human DNA alongside reconstructed precursor genetic samples. Human beings carry dormant genetic sequences that match precursor technology. These sequences are not natural. They were engineered and placed in our DNA thousands of years ago. We thought it was junk DNA, code that served no purpose. But when we analyzed it against precursor samples, we found the truth. Which is, humanity was created, sir, or at least we were modified. Someone took early humans and rewrote their genetic code to include precursor markers. We are not just similar to the precursors. We are their descendants, their heirs, their children. On Prime, the Council received the same information through their intelligence networks. The chamber fell into stunned silence. "You understand now," Elder said. "The precursors did not simply disappear. They left behind successors. They created humanity to continue their work." Daniel Carter felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Everything he knew about his species, about his history, about his place in the universe, had just changed. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then what does that make us? What are we supposed to do?" "That is what terrifies the Council," Counselor said quietly. Daniel noticed that she had moved closer to him during the revelations. "The precursors held power beyond anything we can imagine. If humanity inherits that power, you could rule the galaxy or destroy it." "We do not want to rule anyone," Daniel insisted. "We never have." "But can you promise that you never will?" another counselor demanded. "Can you promise that your descendants 1,000 years from now will feel the same? The precursors were kind and generous, and yet they still disappeared. What if they became something else? What if humanity will do the same?" The council voted. 47 species made their choice, and the result was announced by High Arbiter Hal. By a vote of 32 to 15, the council has decided to quarantine all human space. No ships will be allowed in or out until we can determine the full extent of the precursor connection. Daniel felt his heart sink. This is a mistake. Isolation will only breed fear and misunderstanding. "It is the decision of the council," Hal replied. "We do not wish to harm humanity, Ambassador. We only wish to protect ourselves until we understand what we are dealing with." Lisa Monroe received an alert on her communicator. Her face went pale as she read the message. "Ambassador," she whispered, "we have a bigger problem." She showed him the screen. It was a report from a deep space monitoring station on the edge of known space. Ancient precursor machines have activated for the first time in 1,000,000 years. All of them, across the entire galaxy, and they are all sending the same signal. "What does it say?" Lisa looked up at him with eyes full of wonder and terror. "It says, 'Welcome home.'" The chamber erupted in panic. Species fled for their ships. Security forces mobilized throughout the station. But Daniel Carter stood still, staring at the message on the screen. Humanity had spent 300 years reaching for the stars. They had always believed they were explorers, pioneers, the first of their kind to walk among alien worlds. But now he knew the truth. They were not the first. They were the last. And something very old had been waiting for them to remember who they really were. The blockade began 3 days after the council vote. Ships from 32 species formed a wall around human space, cutting off 200 worlds from the rest of the galaxy. Trade routes went silent. Communication channels were jammed. Humanity was alone. Admiral Jake Reeves stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the enemy fleet through the viewport. He was 60 years old, a veteran of 3 wars, and he had never seen anything like this. The combined armada of the Galactic Council stretched across the stars like a net of death. "How long can we hold them?" asked his second in command. "If they attack with everything they have, maybe 2 hours, maybe less." Reeves turned away from the viewport. His crew looked to him for hope, and he had none to give. The human fleet was strong, but it was built to fight pirates and small conflicts. It was never designed to face the entire galaxy. On Earth, President Cole addressed an emergency session of world leaders. His face was calm, but his voice carried the weight of the moment. "The Council has given us a choice. We can submit to permanent quarantine and allow their scientists to study us like laboratory animals, or we can resist and face destruction. Neither option is acceptable." "Then what do we do?" asked the leader of the European Federation. Before Cole could answer, Dr. Park burst into the chamber with a tablet in his hands. "Sir, we have decoded the precursor signal. Dr. Laura cracked it an hour ago." Cole took the tablet and read the translation. His hands began to tremble. "What does it say?" the European leader demanded. Cole looked up at the assembled leaders with an expression none of them could read. "It says, 'Children, you have slept long enough. The garden needs tending. The weeds have grown.'" Silence fell over the chamber. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, unaware of the drama playing out below. On Prime, Ambassador Daniel Carter paced his quarters like a caged animal. The Council had confined him to the diplomatic section until they decided what to do with him. He was a prisoner in all but name. A chime at his door made him stop. When it opened, he was surprised to see Counselor standing there alone. "We do not have much time," she said quickly. "I have come to warn you." "Warn me about what?" "The extremists in the Council have formed a secret alliance. They believe humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to exist. They are planning to destroy Earth." Daniel felt ice form in his chest. The Council voted for quarantine, not genocide. The vote was a lie to buy time. 3 species have agreed to launch a combined strike against you. They believe that if they kill enough humans, the precursor connection will be broken forever. "When?" "Soon, perhaps hours. You must warn your people." Daniel grabbed her arm. "Why are you telling me this? You could be executed for treason." His reptilian eyes met his, with an intensity he had never seen before. "Because I have spent 40 years watching humanity. I have seen your kindness, your courage, your endless capacity for hope. When my daughter was dying from a disease our doctors could not cure, it was a human physician who saved her. When my world faced famine, it was human ships that brought food. You are not monsters, Daniel. You are the best of us, and I will not let fear destroy that." She pressed a communication device into his hand. "Use this to contact your fleet. Tell them what is coming, and tell them something else." "What?" "Tell them that not all of us have forgotten what friendship means." Daniel watched her leave, then activated the communicator. Within minutes, he was speaking to Admiral Reeves. "Admiral, the Council is planning to attack Earth. This is not a drill." Reeves did not waste time on surprise. "How long do we have?" "Hours at most, maybe less." "Then we fight." "You cannot win, Admiral, you know that." "I know, but I can buy time, time for evacuation, time for something to change, time for a miracle." Reeves paused. "Ambassador, I need you to do something." "Name it." "Find a way to make them see us, really see us. Not as threats or monsters or ancient mysteries, just as people. Can you do that?" Daniel looked at the communication device in his hand and thought about who had risked everything to save people she had no reason to love. "I will try." The attack came faster than anyone expected. 3 fleets broke from the blockade and accelerated toward Earth at maximum speed. Admiral Reeves moved his ships to intercept, knowing he could not stop them. The battle began in the space between Mars and Earth. Human ships fought with desperate courage against overwhelming odds. For every enemy vessel they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The fleet was dying, but it was dying slowly, buying precious time. On Earth, evacuation began. Ships carried civilians away from the major cities. Underground shelters filled with families holding their children close. The world had faced extinction before, but never like this. Never at the hands of those they had called friends. Then something unexpected happened. As the enemy fleets approached Earth orbit, the planet's defense grid activated. But it was not the human defense grid. Hidden satellites that had orbited Earth for thousands of years suddenly came to life, glowing with the same blue light that had welcomed Captain Torres at the precursor ruins. The attacking ships stopped their advance. Their weapons went silent. Their engines failed. "What is happening?" demanded the commander of the lead attacking fleet. His answer came not from his crew, but from every speaker and screen on his ship. A voice spoke in perfect translation, ancient and vast, and somehow filled with warmth. "Children of the galaxy, you have forgotten your lessons. You have let fear replace understanding. You have let hatred replace hope. This is not the garden we planted." The voice was coming from Earth, from the hidden machines that humanity had never known existed, from technology that had waited 1,000,000 years for this moment. Humanity is not your enemy. They are your siblings. They are the bridge we built between your worlds. They carry our dreams and our hope for what you all might become. On his flagship, Admiral Reeves watched as the enemy weapons powered down. He watched as ships that had come to destroy his people simply stopped, frozen by technology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "We do not destroy," the voice continued. "We do not conquer, we nurture, we guide, we protect, and we have given humanity the same purpose. They are not here to rule you. They are here to remind you of what you can be when you stand together." In the council chamber on Prime, High Arbiter Hal listened to the message with the rest of the galaxy. His compound eyes were wide with something that might have been wonder. Ambassador Daniel Carter stepped forward. "High Arbiter, I request permission to address the council." Hal looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Daniel walked to the center of the chamber. 47 species watched him, their fear now mixed with uncertainty. He thought about everything he had learned, everything he had seen, and everything he still believed about his people. "You were right to fear us," he said quietly. "Not because we are strong or because we adapt quickly or because we carry the blood of the precursors. You were right to fear us because we represent change, and change is terrifying." He looked around at the faces watching him. But change is also necessary. The precursors built this galaxy to grow, to evolve, to become something greater than any single species could be alone. Humanity did not ask for this role. We did not know we carried this purpose. But now that we do know, we have a choice to make. Daniel took a deep breath. "And I choose hope. I choose friendship. I choose to be what the precursors wanted us to be, not rulers, not conquerors, partners." The chamber was silent. Every being waited to see what would happen next. And somewhere in the distance, ancient machines hummed with satisfaction. The children were finally learning to share the garden. The ancient machines fell silent after delivering their message, but their words echoed through the galaxy like ripples in a cosmic pond. Ships that had been frozen in space slowly regained power. Weapons that had been ready to destroy worlds powered down one by one. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Jake Reeves collapsed into his command chair. His crew surrounded him, their faces showing the same mixture of exhaustion and disbelief that he felt. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving messages from the Council fleet. They are requesting permission to stand down." Reeves laughed, a sound that was half joy and half the release of unbearable tension. Permission granted. Tell them to go home. This war is over before it began. In the council chamber on Prime, chaos had transformed into something else entirely. Species that had been screaming for humanity's destruction now stood in stunned silence. Others whispered among themselves, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. High Arbiter Hal had not moved from his position since the ancient voice had spoken. His compound eyes were fixed on Ambassador Daniel Carter, who still stood in the center of the chamber. "The machines have spoken," Hal said slowly. "But machines can be wrong. Machines can be manipulated. Why should we believe that humanity will keep its promises?" Daniel nodded. He had expected this question. Fear did not disappear overnight. Trust had to be earned. "You should not believe us because of what the precursors said," Daniel replied. "You should believe us because of what we do. Words are easy. Actions are hard. So let me tell you what humanity is prepared to do." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative. "We will open our borders. Any species that wishes to study us, to live among us, to learn who we really are, will be welcome. We will share the precursor technology that we have discovered, not to gain power, but to lift everyone together. And we will stand with you against any threat, as we always have, asking nothing in return except friendship." "And if we refuse," demanded a counselor whose species had voted for the attack, "what will you do then?" "Nothing," Daniel spread his hands. "We will not force you to accept us. We will not punish you for your fear. We will simply wait and hope that one day you will see us as we truly are." Counselor stepped forward from her position among the representatives. "I believe them," she announced. "My people believe them. We have seen human kindness with our own eyes. We have felt human friendship in our own hearts. I move that the Federation formally ally with humanity." The chamber buzzed with reaction. An alliance was not just a treaty. It was a declaration of trust, a binding of fates. "The motion is noted," Hal said. "Are there others who wish to speak?" One by one, representatives rose. Some spoke against humanity, their fear still too strong to overcome. But others spoke in favor. They told stories of human doctors who had saved lives, human engineers who had rebuilt shattered cities, human soldiers who had died protecting alien worlds. By the time the sun set on Prime, 15 species had voted to ally with humanity. 3 more announced their intention to begin diplomatic negotiations. The rest remained neutral, watching and waiting. It was not total victory, but it was a beginning. 5 years later, Daniel Carter stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city of a world called New Hope. Behind him, representatives from 12 species gathered for the anniversary celebration. Beside him, Lisa Monroe, now an admiral herself, watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "I never thought I would see this," she said quietly. Daniel smiled. New Hope had been a dead world 5 years ago, a barren rock orbiting a forgotten star. Now it was home to millions of beings from across the galaxy, the first true joint colony in galactic history. "The precursors were right about one thing," Daniel said. "Humanity's greatest gift is not strength or adaptation. It is the ability to bring others together." Below them, the streets filled with the evening crowd. Reptilian walked beside traders. Aquatic beings floated in mobile tanks next to crystalline elders. Human children played with alien friends, their laughter mixing with a dozen different languages. High Arbiter Hal approached the balcony, his movements slower now with age. He had changed in the years since the crisis. The fear that had driven him to condemn humanity had transformed into something like respect. "Ambassador Carter," he said, "or should I call you Counselor Carter now?" Daniel shook his head. "Just Daniel, we have been through too much for titles." Hal made a clicking sound that Daniel had learned was laughter. "Very well, Daniel. I came to tell you that the Reformed Council has reached a decision. The quarantine of human space is officially lifted. All restrictions on human travel and trade are ended. Lisa Monroe let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for 5 years. Finally. There is more, Hal continued. The Council has voted to offer humanity a permanent seat on the governing body, not as observers but as full members with equal voice and vote. Daniel felt tears forming in his eyes. After centuries of reaching for the stars, after generations of proving themselves worthy of acceptance, humanity had finally been welcomed into the galactic family. "We accept," he said, "with gratitude and humility." "Humility?" Hal tilted his head. "You are the children of the precursors. You have power beyond anything we can measure. Where does humility come in?" Daniel looked out at the city below, at the dozens of species living together in peace. Power means nothing if you use it alone. The precursors understood that. They did not build an empire, they built a community. They did not want obedience, they wanted growth. Humanity will follow their example. We will lift others up, not hold them down. We will teach, not command. We will love, not conquer. He turned to face the old directly. The galaxy was afraid of what we might become, and they were right to be afraid because we could have become monsters. We could have used our gifts to dominate and destroy, but we made a different choice. We chose to be caretakers, just like the precursors wanted. That night, the celebration continued until dawn. Fireworks lit up the sky in patterns that combined the artistic traditions of a dozen worlds. Music played that blended human instruments with alien melodies. Food was shared from cultures separated by thousands of light years. And on the edge of the celebration, Elder watched with ancient eyes. The crystalline being had lived for 2 million years, had seen civilizations rise and fall, had watched the precursors vanish and wondered if hope had vanished with them. Now at last understood. The precursors had not abandoned the galaxy. They had simply stepped back, allowing their children to find their own path. They had planted the seeds of humanity and trusted that those seeds would grow into something beautiful. And they had been right. Humanity's greatest danger was never what they could destroy. It was what they could build. It was the power to change everything, to bring together what had been divided, to heal what had been broken. The galaxy would never be the same. But for the first time in 1,000,000 years, that was exactly what the universe needed. Daniel Carter watched the sunrise over New Hope and smiled. Somewhere out there, across the vast distances of space, the machines of the precursors hummed with contentment. The garden was finally growing again. And humanity would make sure it never stopped.